Welcome, everybody. This is Carol Milletta of the Parenting 411, where we share information parents need from sources they can trust. So I am so excited to bring you another episode. As I promised you earlier today, I told you we would be having a great discussion. I will be joined by Omeaka Jackson. She is a licensed professional clinical counselor and the author of a new book, Mommy, What's a Protest? And I thought that this would be a great time to have her on because I know that a lot of families can certainly use her services, her expertise, because it's a struggle, really just continuing to operate in pandemic mode and children still out of school in a lot of places. And even in those areas where children have gone to school, some of them are now having to switch back to virtual learning. And so there's a lot of stress for the family. And then, of course, the racial and social unrest in the country. And her book, Mommy, What's a Protest, is certainly very appropriate right now for helping children understand what is going on. So I'm going to welcome her now, and please be prepared to drop any questions or comments in the chat, and we can answer questions or invite you into the discussion. So thank you. Hello, Omeaka.
Hi, Carol. How are you?
Fine. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yes, it's my pleasure to have you. So let's start off talking about your practice. I know that you work with children and families. So tell us about your practice, and then let's talk a little bit about what your work has been like since COVID's been around.
Okay. So we are a nonprofit behavior health and youth and family development agency in Dorchester County on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. We provide behavior health counseling as well as mentoring. We have a lot of programs. So we do mentoring. We have a reading social currently right now. We have a virtual learning support group. So we are actually providing educational assistance to about 12 children in the community via social distancing, but in person to help with the educational process. We also have produced and facilitated multiple programs regarding mental health, youth and family development. We have an annual youth expo, and we are part of a trio of agencies that provide a Underground Railroad Freedom Regatta, teaching young people about the maritime trades and recreation as well. So we do a lot of different things.
Wow. And tell our viewers the name of your organization and your website if they can get more information there.
Okay. It is Harvesting Hope Youth and Family Wellness. And the website is harvestinghopeinc.org.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how has your workload changed, or, the nature of what you're doing for people, or how has it increased since we have started this, since I guess 8 months ago?
Yeah.
The whole quarantining and just dealing with this pandemic. How has that changed?
It has fluctuated. Actually, we lost a couple of people in the beginning, then we picked some up, then we dropped some, and then it's kind of back up. And I think part of it is the duration of COVID taking its impact and its toll on people. Clients that at one point were in services are now looking to return to services. And so you kind of see that, and then you have the schools referring, you have the courts referring for, many different reasons. And so for us, it's kind of been, I would almost say steady, even though there was a time where it was declining. But at the same time, I think it was beneficial because as therapists, we're being impacted by COVID as well, right?
Mhm, mhm.
We're having family issues, just like everybody else, with loss, um, family members are who have maybe tested positive for COVID, or clients possibly that's tested positive for COVID, and so those types of things are definitely impacting us just as well as the regular community.
I really like what you're doing in terms of supporting students, I guess, with their academics during this time, because that's that's definitely been a problem where there's some children that maybe their parents have frontline jobs,
Hmm.
so they're working outside of the home,
Yes.
or they may have parents that just don't feel as confident about
Hmm.
helping them with their schoolwork. And so those are the students that a lot of people are worried about really slipping through the cracks
Yeah.
during this time. And so you will hear in a lot of those areas everybody saying, we want school open, we want school open. And you feel for them because they need school open. I
Right.
mean, at the same time, there's concern about the staff and really even the children as well, because if COVID circulates around the school and they take it back home to the families, we just will never get out of this cycle. So
Right.
it's great to hear that you're doing that. I really hope that more community-based organizations are looking at that, because that's a very real concern. I mean, that could be a whole year
Yes.
of learning, loss of learning, and
Yeah.
that's really critical.
Yeah. It's two other programs here that's actually doing the same thing, and we're
Mhm.
actually in partnership. And so that's one thing that we're trying to kind of get out. It's like if you have the space and have the ability, take two or three, children. It doesn't have to be a lot, but
Right.
any support will do for the children and the families.
Hmm. Hmm. Now, let's talk a bit about your book and how
Yeah.
you came to write that. I mean, like I said, it really is meeting the moment. Tell us about that.
So I'm a shameless plug. So
No,
here it
it's
goes.
not no shame at
Yeah, here
all.
we
Please
go.
do.
So it's called Mommy What's a Protest? And I had thought about it for a while, and just wasn't sure if it was something I really wanted to do because it could be a touchy subject. But as things continue to progress,
Hmm.
especially with the murders of African Americans, male, female, young
Hmm.
and old. And to me, it was like, no, now is the time, right?
Hmm.
Because the children are seeing it,
Right.
they're hearing about it. And so we need to be able to have an age appropriate conversation with them about what is a protest and why people are protesting.
Hmm. Hmm. And so, in the case of your book, does it focus on the particular protests that are going on now, or the idea of what a protest is?
Particularly on what's going on now without the mention of names.
Okay,
Yes.
right. I mean, because what I really like about the book is that protests, that can be a powerful way to get your message across. And I mean, and throughout history, a lot of progress has been made because of
Yes.
people taking to the streets. I mean, it hasn't always involved race, but just
Right.
the right to vote, the
Yeah.
women's rights,
Mhm.
and equal pay, for
Yes.
example.
Yeah.
So I think this is really a great time to teach children about the power of their voice.
Yes.
And what I talk to parents a lot about is that really the laboratory for where they learn about their voice and the power of it really is at home. And that
Yes.
comes from, allowing children to respectfully question, even if they aren't going to ultimately get things to go their way, but give them the opportunity to be heard and become accustomed to being heard and expecting to be heard. So that's what I think is really great about the book. Now, do you have children?
I do, but my children are grown.
You
uh,
got to be kidding.
yeah, my children are grown, and so part of the conversation I ended up having with my granddaughter, um, because she was curious because she helped. We here in Cambridge, we also participated in the Black Lives Matter mural down on Race Street, and
Okay.
so she was part of that conversation. And so, that's kind of, and that's also in the book. And so, she was like, Papa, um, my best friend is white because she is.
Right.
So I keep hearing Black Lives Matter. Does that mean Sadie's doesn't matter? And so we had the whole conversation about how Sadie's matter and how everybody matter, but why it's important for us to say that we matter. And then she was like, "Oh, okay, as long as me and Sadie's get to be friends." And so, but she wanted to know, like, uh, how if we matter, kind of the conversation that some adults try to have, but hers is more innocent in
Sure.
nature because she doesn't understand that. And then
Mhm.
once I explained it to her, she was like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense."
Well, yeah, and I like that. It's interesting. I mean, she's young. I mean, what kind of gets frustrating is when you have people who are old enough to know better to
Yes,
say, "Oh, well, then my life doesn't matter," or "These people's
right.
life doesn't matter," and we're like, "They do matter," and if we acted like Black Lives Matter, we
Yes,
really wouldn't need to say this.
that's it. Yeah,
So, but of course, with your granddaughter, she doesn't have all the context, so you understand why
right.
she's asking. But some folks, I just don't.
I don't get and I don't understand, right? And now, when she said it, all I could do was like giggle and was like, oh, my baby is, she's getting it. She's asking questions, right? And so that's the reason for the book is to have children comfortable with asking the questions, but also giving the adult the tools to answer it again in an age appropriate manner.
Hmm, hmm. And so, what are some of I mean, if you can share some of the concerns or that clients are having in dealing in this period?
It's trying to figure out for the European Americans figuring out their place at this point, uh, because some of them want to be the change that they want to see
Okay.
and wanting to make sure that they're not necessarily stepping on toes,
Hmm.
or trying to be, white saviors, but want to be advocates and teammates in the process. For
Hmm.
us, it's kind of sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Hmm.
How many more times do we have to protest the fear? Before
Hmm.
it was just really a fear of our males in our lives, our fathers, our brothers, our sons, cousins, and things like that. But now it's us too as women,
Sure.
right? And so it's the real fear, for us and our daughters and things like that. And so it's just more compounded stress of
Hmm.
not knowing, if it will be you or your family members. And then just the trauma of it all. It's very traumatic. And I think it to me, it's a mental health crisis, because it's causing severe depression and anxiety in the Black community.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I was also wondering too, how are parents feeling? First of all, let me give a shout out to Janice. Hey, Janice, thanks for joining us. Um, how are parents managing the whole thing about working and also having to make sure their children are in front of the screens doing the work that they're supposed to do? How's that? What are they saying about that?
Uh, they're exhausted. Trying to not knowing how to balance work and teaching, because I can't be on my job for 8 hours at home, but also managing my child online, and making sure that they're understanding what it is that the teachers are doing, making sure that their children's cameras are on, right? That they're actually participating in the class,
Uh-huh.
and not falling asleep in class. And so, it's taxing. So a lot of them are tired, or those who have flexible schedules are working earlier in the day, taking a break when the children are in class, and then picking up
Okay.
after school is over for them. And then you have other ones who literally have to go to work and
Mm.
don't have anywhere for their children to go. And so there's that stress that their child is being left home by themselves.
Oh, wow. Yeah, absolutely. My goodness. What has been the reception to your book so far?
So far, so good. Again, I wasn't sure how people were going to take it. So far, so good. I have only had positive reviews
Hmm.
from it, and I get that every book is not going to be for everybody.
Hmm.
But I didn't make it for those people, right?
Right,
I
right.
made it for the people who need to have the conversation or is open to having the conversation, but also giving our children the information that they need, and to let them know that they matter,
Right.
um, and the emotional impact that that it does have on children. And
Hmm.
so people are receptive to that part of it in just the conversation in general.
Yes, well, that's good to hear. Now, where can they get the book? Where can we get it?
The book can be purchased on Amazon. That's I self-published, so it can be purchased through Amazon. If
Hmm.
the individual would like a autographed copy, they can inbox me on Facebook, or um, through my personal email. Um, and one of the local businesses here actually has it in their store. It's called Honeybee's Trading Post, and
Okay.
so she's selling it out of her store as
Oh,
well.
okay. That sounds good. That's good. Let's see. We have Shakima Schoolfield on. Thank
That's
you
my
for joining.
daughter.
Your daughter? Well, great, great. Thank you for joining us. Now, does she live here in the area?
She actually lives in North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good. Yeah. So this is what's next for you.
So I'm actually in a clinical PsyD program
Oh,
to
nice.
get my doctorates in clinical psychology. I am working on a follow-up book actually for the social justice series, because that's what I've decided to kind of focus on, is a social justice series for children.
Hmm.
And that's kind of it. And continuing to do the therapy piece. We're educating people about social justice, but also the impact that COVID is having at this time, and
Hmm.
the social unrest. Wanting them to understand that, like, it's okay and it's normal to whatever it is that you're feeling.
Right.
It's okay, even if it's numbness. It's okay.
Yes, and you're doing a tremendous service. That social justice series will be really a tremendous service to children of color,
Yeah.
because my children are 21 years old. I have
Mhm.
twins.
Okay.
And when they were younger, I really, made an effort to find books with children that looked like them,
Yes.
as well as other groups as well. But I mean, that wasn't always as easy,
Yeah.
or in the kind of settings that you want them to be in. The variety of roles and all of
Yeah.
that. So I think that this time has spurred a lot of work in that space with children's books, and so I think that'll be great. And then addressing the issue of social justice and racism.
Yeah. Yeah.
Frankly, because the books that we had were usually about history and all of that,
Right.
but it was farther back in time. So
Right.
now this is like really in the moment. So I think that's going to be really good. Yeah. So now you're in Dorchester. Isn't that near the Underground Railroad? Am I right about that?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, that's
Home
what I
of
thought.
Harriet Tubman. Yeah.
Yeah, because when I think about Dorchester, yeah, she definitely comes to mind. So
Yes.
yeah, that's really good. That's good. So so you're going to finish with your series, and you're in the Psych D program.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's really you've got a lot coming up. That's great.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. It's, I think it's important for um, African Americans or people of color to actually see therapists of color in a different role.
Mhm.
Not that European Americans can't help us, because there are some great ones out there.
Mhm.
Um, but sometimes we want to talk to us
Mhm.
because we get it. We
Yes.
have the same experiences,
Mhm.
and there's a non there's a perception of non-judgment, because therapy is supposed to be non-judgmental anyway.
Right.
But our issues when we're talking about microaggressions at work or in the store and things like that, most Black therapists, if not all, get it because they've experienced it in some
Right.
form or fashion. And so you're not having to explain it. Uh,
Mhm.
all you have to do is say it, and the person gets it.
Right, right. And so now, have you been talking with children around the race and what's going on, their questions in your practice?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. And, I think adults tend to forget that children are people too,
Mhm.
and that they pick up on things.
Mhm.
And even before some of this stuff was going on, a lot of the children had concerns of racism in school, right?
Okay.
And so some of the topics that we would discuss is just their interactions with staff and how they know that the teacher was treating them different because of the color of their skin, or how did the teacher looked at them and things like that. And so, I'm going to them to talk to them about one issue, but racism was coming up for them. And that was something that needed to be addressed for them, because
Mhm.
it's real. And not to kind of play it down, but, give them the space to talk about it.
Yes, and and they become aware of differences so very young. A colleague of mine um, partnered with me to do a workshop, a webinar, basically on
Mhm.
cultural awareness,
Yeah.
and so she's a psychologist, clinical psychologist, and she talked about how young, how it starts, and so
Mhm.
some parents don't want to talk about it,
Right.
or and so the fact that you don't talk about it, they see it, so they even take that in, like, okay,
Yeah.
it's something that I shouldn't, we can't talk about,
Right.
and there must be something wrong because they don't want to talk about it.
Right.
And this is even not just in European families, European American
Right.
families, but even in Black families. It's like,
Yeah.
don't say that. Like if they ask a question about someone's skin color or something like that,
Right.
well, don't say that. When
Yes.
they're looking right at skin color, they see it. So why not talk about it? Now let's see. Ty Miller saying yes. They're having that experience with their 7-year-old now. I mean,
Mm.
talking about race and differences. So, yeah, I mean, it's just a part of who people are, and it's just
Yeah.
a part of diversity, and that's what we talked about in our webinar, was just to answer questions and talk about it so that they know that that's just a part of who they are, and you
Right.
know and what I also say is to point out that, and particularly with white families, is you're different to us too. So I
Right.
mean, it's not, you can't look at your one group as the standard and everything else is other or
Yeah.
different. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, so that's really important as well. So I'm glad that families are actually engaging your services. Do the children normally do group work? Do you work with them in groups or one-on-one in dealing with racism and all of that?
We've done one-on-one for the most part where it comes up,
Hmm.
but when we do the mentoring based stuff, it definitely comes up.
Mm-hmm.
It comes up, and I think more so because it's the peer relation. So when one person says something about it, the other children start telling their stories about it, and then they know, like, I'm not the only one who is experiencing this.
Mm-hmm.
So all of us are experiencing it, and so
Right.
then it's me or whichever mentor is there with them is to talk to them about advocacy. How do
Yes.
you use your voice? If this is what's going on with the same teacher, have you reached out to your guidance counselor? Have you told your parents? Because a lot of times children won't tell their parents, and it's because they, well, I don't want my parent going to the school and turning the school out. Right. And so you have to say, well, your parent can't advocate for you if you don't tell them. And, the teacher may not know that they're doing this, right? They may really don't know
Mm-hmm.
that they are treating you differently. And some do and don't care, but first bring it to their attention.
Absolutely.
Because you may be shocked and oh my gosh, I didn't even realize I've been doing that.
Right.
And so, we don't want to necessarily label every experience as racism or prejudice or a bias.
Mm-hmm.
But once you've brought it to their attention and it continues, then you kind of know what it is.
Yeah.
And you want to give them the opportunity to change, right? Once it's brought to
Yes.
their attention.
Yeah. And I think that's, you know, I mean, this is a painful time for
Mhm.
sure. But, I feel like, combined with the pandemic, a lot of cracks in our facade have been
Mhm.
revealed.
Yes.
Like, I think that we've just been in some quarters, people, except for the violence, the
Mhm.
police involved violence,
Right.
that's been bubbling up for sure. But in a lot of ways, people just have felt like, oh, we've got this under control, this, racism and whatever. But
Yeah.
it hasn't been dealt with,
No.
and it's going to keep coming back
Yes.
until we do. And
Yeah.
so, um, this time that we're in has really kind of it's awakened some people. I mean, I guess, I don't know, they didn't believe us or whatever it was, but some people are really starting to see that racism is a very serious problem, and that it's not going to go away if it's not addressed. So that's a good thing. I
Yeah.
mean, because because some people, even people that would say, well, I'm not overtly racist, so I don't have
Yeah.
a problem. They're starting to recognize biases that they have,
Yeah.
or they're starting to recognize it in other people, and realize that it makes life very difficult for
Yeah.
us. And after a while, we're just tired.
That's it. Yes. And it's I've come across, well, let me say this. There's a group of ladies that meet every not every Thursday, one Thursday a month.
Hmm.
And it's called Courageous Conversations.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's a mixed group of ladies. So it's African American and Caucasian. We're trying to get, more people to the table. And we're talking about race.
Hmm.
And it is a very therapeutic process.
Hmm.
And it's a safe space
Hmm.
for us to talk, and no one feels slighted
Hmm.
or judged
Hmm.
by telling their story or their experiences.
Hmm.
And it has been impactful
Hmm.
for all of us, right?
Right. Hmm.
Uh, because there's two sides to racism
Hmm.
that sometimes we don't necessarily look at. And sometimes, you have the people that was raised in it.
Hmm.
And they may not have felt that way, but their family did.
Hmm.
And now I have to decide to kind of go it alone or go
Right.
along with the status of my family.
Right.
And people, legitimately lost family members because they've stood up against racism. And
Hmm.
that's a hard thing, like to
Hmm.
kind of, to be disowned,
Right.
because you don't agree with the way that they feel about people of color. And that's a serious loss that, we don't always look at.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. So, as we wrap up, can you tell everybody again where they can learn more about what you're doing and also where they can get the book?
All right. So we are a behavioral health agency that does youth and family development
Hmm.
with a strong focus on education. The book is Mommy, What's a Protest? And it can be purchased on Amazon. And if you would like an autographed copy, you can purchase it through me. And you can inbox me on Facebook, or you can contact me at Omeaka, Omeakia, smiles at gmail.com.
Okay, yeah, because I never know when people might be dropping in and dropping out. So I wanted you to
Yeah.
repeat that again so that they can get it, because I think that that book is excellent, an excellent resource for parents and teachers as well. Um,
Thank you.
they could be talking about that now, even in virtual school, and certainly have it on the bookshelf when we get back to a normal in-person school setting. So yeah. So thank you again for joining me. I really appreciate it. I just like to um, cover topics that parents are concerned about. And when I heard about your book, I was like, I know that families are dealing with this, trying to explain to children what's going on and to calm their fears. But also,
Mhm.
this is a teachable moment to let them know that that they can learn how to productively and effectively
Mhm.
use their voice to create change in the world. So thank you again, and
Thank
thank
you
you
for
to
having me.
all the viewers. And if you did not catch the recording in catch it live in its entirety, I will start a watch party, and you can rewatch it if you'd like. So thanks again, Omeaka.
Thanks for having me, Carol. Thank you.
Okay, take care.
You too. Bye bye.